Ms. Hicklin, take to think it over, but the question to you is, Ms. Hicklin, take a moment to think it over, but the question to you is, what is your biggest priority for the next legislative session? Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer this particular question when you're ready, Ms. Hicklin.
It's undeniable that the biggest issue that we face is securing our border. That is paramount, and that everything relies upon that. We have a right and a duty to secure our border and to enjoy that kind of safety for our families and for the future of Texas. I am the candidate that the governor entrusts to work with him in securing the border. I think that's important to know, because as a representative of our district, you need someone who is able to advocate effectively and get legislation passed. Nobody does that on their own in Austin. You need a team, a coalition, and I'm the one with those relationships to be effective in representing our district.
1 minute on this question, which is, what is your biggest priority for the next legislative session?
Yeah, well, I agree there that it has to be the border. We need to not just secure the border, we need to lock that border down, and we need to export all the people who are here illegally. If they got here illegally, we need to just send them back. And we can put them on a slow boat, or we can put them on a fast airplane, but they need to go back to the middle of the country from which they came. You know, it's not right for people's jobs here to be undercut, for our wages to be undercut, for our schools to be overloaded, for our hospitals to be overloaded. So it's not only securing the border, it's not only getting that straight, which, you know, our governor's had a lot of time to get that done, and just now doing something that looks like it's going to be functional. So we need to secure the border. We need to export those people who are here illegally as we find them.
Mr. Stroud, when you're ready, sir.
Hey, I'm not the three that has to agree. The border is the biggest issue. I don't know. It goes so far back that people talk about we have a crisis, we have an emergency, and then for decades nothing happens. This border issue can be fixed easily. We just need people with guts in government that stand up to DC and say we have enough. We need the people to back it up and say enough is enough. And we cannot let it go on any further, for any longer. And that is absolutely possible, and I have no issues taking, if they want to sue us, if they want to take us to court, they challenge us. I said it yesterday, I say it again, I don't give a damn about that, excuse my language, but this is what needs to happen. We need people with guts that get it done. My second issue is a 10% pay cut for all elected officials. Thank you.
Well, the border issue is one of the most important issues that I have either co-authored or co-sponsored all the major legislation that we've passed in the legislature in the last 8 years. In fact, supported and co-authored the $6 billion that we've been spending. I was just down in even past Wednesday of this week as well, visiting with law enforcement officers and National Guard officers, because I've been there. In my National Guard career, I served on the border, flying missions. But it's not just the border issue that's important to us in Bell County. Water issues, property tax issues. All of those issues are critical and very important to each and every one of us, because the border issue affects our hospitals, it affects our law enforcement, and it also affects our schools. And we have to resolve the issue, and it needs to be resolved with good, strong legislative measures and initiatives. Thank you.
The next question will go to Mr. Ford first, and it's also about the border, an area of particularly sharp concern, and some think a potentially likely scenario involving the courts. If the Supreme Court were to issue a final order telling Texas to remove the border barriers, and Greg Abbott then defied that order, how do you think that would go, and what would you do?
Well, here's the deal. The governor has had the constitutional authority under the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution to have done something about this mass immigration invasion that we are suffering right now. He's had the authority in the state state legislatures have the authority to take care of that well before now. I mean, he's done 5 or 6 things that all have to do with sending greeting parties down there to shake hands with these people and do whatever, give them phones and gift cards and whatever else, and say hi to them as they walk across our border. So we have the authority to do this, irrespective of what the federal government is doing. This is an invasion. It's already in the Constitution, both federal and state. We can lock it down.
Mr. Estrada.
Can you repeat the question, please, Council?
Yes, sir. The question is, if the U.S. Supreme Court were to issue a final ruling and order that Texas is to remove its border barriers, and in that case, if Greg Abbott was to defy that order, how do you believe that would go, and what would you do if elected?
Thank you so much for that question, because it's really important. We had the same issue 250 years ago. We had a functional government that was actively working against the people in the colonies. They had to make a choice. Do I go along with it, or do I speak up? They spoke up for decades, pleading with the king, sending letters, sending offerings, whatever they did. Some were accepted, some the king said, no, it's not going to happen, so they boycotted the king. Some worked out, some didn't. So in the end, when the last thing happened and push came to shove, they said, okay, we are for independence. So we have done that before. We have to stand up to a federal government that is actively working against the people. And that's what I said before. We need people with guts in government that stand up and challenge them. And that's what we need. We don't need yes men down in government. We have to protect the state, we have to protect the people. And if we have to challenge, again, I sound like a broken record, but that's what needs to happen. We need strong people, and thank you.
Folks, we are a nation of laws, and I don't like it any more than anyone else does when we have the federal government intervening on something to protect our safety and our security. When we look at the laws that we pass in the legislature, we try to make sure that we look at how that is written to give us as much latitude as possible to make sure that that law stands and gives us the safety and security and protection that we're looking for and do. Just co-authored bills that we just passed that are already under review. We've got the Department of Justice taking us to court over an 1899 law. These things are critical to our safety and critical to the government that we have. And I would hope that if that happens, that the Supreme Court makes that ruling, that we as a legislative body will come together and come up with additional legislation that can circumvent whatever that ruling is so we can continue to secure the border. And we do that with legislative action.
If the federal government isn't doing their job in protecting our state, we have to step in and do that. I'm going to put my money on Texas every time. It's not the first time that we've had to go against a tyrannical government to protect our citizens and do the right thing. So I absolutely would support the governor and whatever legislation and avenue that he wanted to go through. I think that we can come together as a state and we can push back with states' rights as is provided in the Constitution. We have a right to do that, and our citizens deserve to be protected.
This next question, we will rotate Mr. Estrada. You'll be up first. This year's race in House District 55 has brought in an unusually large amount of attention and money. In fact, the amount of money involved is on track to be 10 or 20 times the amount of money in the next highest fundraising dollar total of a local contested primary. The question to you, sir, is what is the impact of all this money on how you will represent House District 55? For this question, the candidates will all have a minute and a half. Again, the question is, what is the impact of all this money on how you will represent House District 55? Mr. Estrada, when you're ready, sir.
Yes, thank you. Very good question. I made it a point that I said when I ran for this office, self-funded, I made it a point that I don't want people's money. We have tough times out there, people are struggling, people have to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, people barely scratching by. I'm not in any mindset to be out there and say, hey, I want to fight for your freedom and for your rights, but you know what, you have to give me money. And if you don't give me money, then I can do it, which is a flagrant lie, because I can't absolutely stand up for everybody without you giving me your money. So I dislike those large donations. I'm not a politician, never done this before, never thought in a million years I'd come to a new country and run for office, because I feel like I'm so grateful. It's the greatest country in the world. Can we appreciate that? But now I'm at a point where I have to say, look, Americans, you're doing it wrong. Okay? I dislike those large donations, because at what point do we say, do we serve the donors, or are we still serving the people? And again, it's no ill feelings, it is in generally speaking, in general terms. So the impact is that the conduct of some people is highly questionable, because you really have to figure out, who do you serve? Why is the money there? What do they expect in return? Is there a catch? I assume there is, but that's just me. So keep your money, I'm good, and I will fight for you. Thank you.
Well, you should always follow the money trail. Money coming in from outside the state of Texas is huge this session over one issue. It's whether or not you want your public schools in the state of Texas to be controlled by statewide or national companies and private businesses that want power and control it with money. That money doesn't come from Texas. It's coming from outside Texas, from New York, from Pennsylvania, places that have already established themselves because they want a national education network of private schools, and they want to see that privatization to take place across the country. And they want it in Texas. This outside money comes in, they don't know who we are. They don't care who we are. They just want the power, and they want to control it with money, because money is the man in politics. You can say whatever you want to. You can put out all kinds of lies, misrepresent the truth. But the bottom line is, the people in this district know what's important to them. I'm proud to say that I have nearly 600 local leaders in this community that have endorsed me and support me. My support comes from the people in this community. Those who are elected, those who are in our chambers of commerce, those who are in our schools, not just our teachers and administrators, but people in law enforcement across the district of Central Texas. And I want to tell each and every one of them, thank you.
I love the idea of following the money. I think when you look at associations and organizations that are invested in maintaining the status quo, that's definitely something that we need to question. I think everybody in this room recognizes that it's time for change.
Yes.
When I started this race, my issue was parent empowerment and freedom in education. I committed at that point that school choice legislation was what I was willing to put everything behind. This is not easy. You've already heard it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of effort. How do you do that? So I committed in the beginning, you know what, I'm going to take money from school choice PACs. I took money from one PAC. It's based in Houston, Texas. And it's a group of legislators and innovators in education, because you guys, Bell County, all of Texas, we have an education crisis where we will graduate in the 90% of, we have 97% graduation rate, but less than 50% can read or do math on grade level. This is the issue that the majority of Bell County wants parents to have the freedom to choose the best education for their kids, to the tune of 88.7% of Republican primary voters. You want a representative that's going to listen to who puts you in office. That's me, and education freedom is something I'm unashamed about supporting.
We have people on one side that are getting all kinds of money from the Carl Rhodes of the world, the rich ruling class elite, one world government, new world order people, and we got people on the other side getting lots of money, from various sources around the country too. I have been going to the Republican State Convention every time since 1988, as I said, and I have been going there on my time and my dime, serving most of you. We got some Democrats in here, I guess. But anyway, in about 1996, I went in there and got a Republican Party rule passed, Rule 43, that says that anytime anyone runs for office as a Republican, they're supposed to get a hard copy of the Republican Party platform, and they're asked to read it. Wow, I got in big trouble for that. But we should be reading that because there's a whole bunch of really good ideas in that platform as to how we can handle these problems. But as to public education, which is why this money's been flowing into these races here, we need true parental choice. We need to let parents choose where their kids go to school, who's doing the instruction, and what they're taught. We absolutely do need that, and we're not going to get that with government monopoly schools unless they have the heat put to them a little bit and they feel like they're going to need to compete just a little bit, right? So I'm out of time. Thank you.
The final question for the candidates in House District 55. Mr. Shine, you will be up first for this question. The topic here, we're changing to property taxes, but to an issue that uniquely, or you might say disproportionately, affects Bell County, specifically as it relates to the provision of the law where disabled veterans, God bless them, and we're thankful to live among them, but many of them don't pay any property taxes. And so the question to you, Mr. Shine, first off is, do you have a plan to remedy the property tax shortfall that substantially affects certain areas of Bell County due to the disproportionate representation of disabled veterans who pay no property taxes? And if you do have a plan to remedy or address this, what is that plan, sir? All the candidates will have a minute and a half for this question. Mr. Shine, when you're ready, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, I have a plan. And we sponsored that plan in the last session of the legislature. I had 115 of my 150 House members co-author the plan with me. It was a statewide plan because we have 25 military communities that lose around $250 million a year in local taxes, which means it's a problem for you with your police, and with your fire, and your municipalities having that money. We passed it out of the House of Representatives 135 to 9. We sent it to the Senate. When I got to the Senate after we passed it from the House, the Senate hadn't even discussed it. There was a bill that was filed because it was my bill. And I made sure that any bill that I had or any substitute that I had, I took it to the Senate and gave it to the Senate for the purpose of having a companion bill. People from across the state came to a hearing in the Senate. Even the chairman sat up there and said, why is this the first time I've ever heard about this? It needs to be fixed for us and other military communities across the state of Texas. The Senate didn't even appoint a conference committee to try to negotiate the aspects of the bill. I did. And because the Senate didn't appoint a conference committee, the bill could not be passed. I will file that bill again this next session.
When you're ready, ma'am.
I'm going to start by saying any state mandate that we put on our communities, the state needs to come and help shoulder the burden. That specific legislation I spoke with Senator Flores about, he said it was dead on arrival because the fiscal note was exorbitant. What Senator Flores did is he brought back an answer to that was just for Bell County and Coriolis, for our communities, for our area. And it was not carried beyond that point. If that same bill is filed again, it will die again. But I want you to know that I'm here for Bell County. I'm advocating for Bell County. And I will partner with Senator Flores to bring about relief for Bell County in this regard.
I'm going to do a totally different take here on the property tax, overtax, undertax situation than any of the other people up here, I believe. And that isn't to say that we need to follow Don Huffines, former state senator, former candidate for governor, and phase out property taxes over the next 7 years. Yeah, we can do that, but we'll just not spend 35% more than we did the last time here with our state legislature. So I don't know if you guys realize that we're spending that much more money. And all these property tax, we're going to lower your property taxes. Well, I don't know about you, but in my little area of the world where I live, the property tax deduct went down the same as the property appraisals went up. So we got a little bit of, compression, I guess is what they call it. But if you went to Starbucks and bought a cup of coffee, you spent the money that you saved. Okay, so that was a big help, wasn't it? Did everybody agree that was a big help? So we need to phase out property taxes. Just take, quit spending so darn much every time. Just limit the increase in state spending, and the growth in our income, our state income is just phenomenal because everybody's moving here. They want to be here because people like power. I'm sure that's what it is. So anyway, that's my solution. We need to quit hiring F-rated Republicans to represent us.
Okay, this question is home because I am the recipient of this exemption. Due to my wife, she's over 21 years, like I told you, she's a 100% disabled veteran. She paid for that. Not all booths are visible. These people just serve it. And we need to expand it actually. That is my take on this one. We need to lower property tax, and I agree with Mr. Ford and the Conference plan. The ultimate goal, the end goal should be to get rid of it. Because we'll never own anything if we still pay taxes on it. Your house is paid off, you're on a fixed income, you cannot work, you have medical conditions, whatever, and then we have to live under the fear that the big old government can come in and take our stuff that's paid off by you. That's not okay. But we have to think about how we do it and what is sustainable. If we do this from this awesome surplus that we have, which by the way tells me we pay too much taxes if we have so much left over. But if we do that from the surplus, it's only just temporarily. We need something sustainable. So 2 years we're going to sit here again, but we still have this property tax issue. What do we do? So we need to find ways to lower property tax in a sustainable way, but also hold the cities accountable, what's the word? Make sure cities cannot increase their internal taxes on people without voter consent. I guess they call it tax increment rate. That needs to stop to think about.
We're going to extend our thanks to the candidates for House District 55. That concludes our questions for House District 55. The candidates for District Attorney, please.